Hello. Reset. Bhavani. Vanakkam, friends. This is ARRM Arun. I'm the president of the Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, SPIC. Wishing you all a very good evening today. On behalf of SPIC, I take great pleasure in welcoming our esteemed former president, Dr. A.C. Muthiah, to today's event. I also take great pleasure in welcoming each one of you who have joined us at our chamber today, as well as every one of you who've joined us online. We appreciate having you with us. Today's event is particularly important to us from three perspectives. First, we would like to take this opportunity to convey our best wishes to Dr. Muthiah on completion of 80 years. We thought that this would be an apt way to be able to invite him over, and certainly we would also like to take this opportunity to wish him many more years ahead. The second perspective is that during these 80 years, Dr. Muthiah has certainly accomplished tremendously across various walks of life. We certainly feel that there is a lot that Dr. Muthiah can share with us that we can each gain from. The third perspective is that we would certainly like to celebrate this occasion. Celebrate our own past president having accomplished so much for industry as well as within our chamber. We felt that this would be an apt way in order for us to offer our felicitations to him. SPIC, as most of you would be aware, has completed 110 years of service to industry, government, and society. During these 110 years, we have had several eminent speakers visit us and share with us more about their areas of expertise. Invariably, our speakers spend about 20 to 25 minutes of their time and restrict their inputs to us to just the areas of expertise. We, however, felt that each one of our speakers would be able to offer much more than just the area of expertise. We were sure that our speakers can certainly talk about their career path, their path to excellence, as well as their inputs for the next generation as well as for society. And that's how we came up with the concept of SPIC 360. Can we have the slide, please? Next slide, please. Before I continue with this slide, for our online guests, may I request your attention to the two executives whose names and numbers are listed in the bottom of this slide. Please take a note of it, and if any of you have any issues reconnecting in the future of this call, please feel free to give them a call and they will be glad to assist you. As I was saying, SPIC 360 is a new foray for SPIC, building on the experience of our seminars. We wanted a name that depicts a multidimensional perspective because we certainly want to be able to draw upon the multidimensional expertise that each one of our guests have to offer. And that's how we came up with the brand of SPIC 360. The objective of this is to have a lively discussion with our eminent guests. And each one of our guests are experts in their fields who share their all-round paths to excellence with us. We certainly look forward to our guests' inputs for our next generations as well. When we look at the session format, we typically have 5 sessions as part of this SPIC 360 series. First, we talk about our guests' expertise. Secondly, we talk about our guests' organization and their role within their organization. Third, we talk about their career path. Fourth, we talk about their inputs for the next generation. And finally, we speak about their inputs for society. We certainly encourage you, our audience, to participate. There are 2 guidelines that we follow during this program. Number 1 is We would like to ensure that our guest is at comfort at every point of time. And secondly, we would like you, our audience, to participate by sharing your thoughts, comments, suggestions, whatever you have, with our SPIC 360 team. And we'll be glad to moderate it and have it answered in the course of today's program. Next slide, please. I'd now like to share a few words about Dr. A.C. Muthiah. I'm sure quite a lot of you have known quite a lot about him already, so there's nothing much that we could add, but still, we wanted to pick out areas that not many might be aware, and we put it down here, and it's still come up to a slide full. We've tried to reduce the font size, but it's still quite a lot. So let me just go through it quickly. Dr. Muthiah has a mechanical engineering degree from the College of Engineering, Gandhi, and he underwent his technical training at the University of Detroit. He's got 2 honorary doctorates, one from the Alagappa University and secondly from the Anna University. He grew his business from 5 crores during the 1960s to 6,000 crores during the 1990s. And his businesses spanned more than a dozen verticals, and he employed more than 15,000 employees. The industries that he has been in include fertilizers, of course, chemicals and petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, electronics, engineering, and automotive. Dr. Muthiah was our past president from 1979 to 1987, including the Platinum Jubilee year that was inaugurated by Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in 1987. Dr. Muthiah has been FICCI president 2002 to 2003, again during its Platinum Jubilee year, and he launched the Pravasya Bharatiya Divas, which was India's way of reaching out to the NRI community worldwide. Dr. Muthiah has been on the Prime Minister's Advisory Council for Trade and Industry. He's been BCCI president from 1999 to 2001, as well as TNCA 1994 to 95, as well as 2001 to 2. He's been managing trustee of the MAC Charities, which runs the School and College of Nursing. He's been managing trustee of the ACA Medical Foundation, which is the area that strikes out to me the most because of the fact that there are 15 primary healthcare centers that are run under this foundation, providing healthcare facilities free of cost to villagers in over 240 villages in deep southern Tamil Nadu. This caters to more than 10,000 families, and they treat more than 100 people every day, both with doctor visits as well as with free medication. Dr. Muthiah has been honored by the Shankaracharya of Kanchi with the Sat Seva Ratna. He's also been awarded with the Mut Tamil Veil by Kundrakudi Adinam and felicitated by Dharmapuram Adinam for contribution to religion, community, and Tamil. Dr. Muthiah is chairman of the Kanchi Kamukodi Child's Trust Hospital, as well as the Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering. He is on the board of trustees of the Voluntary Health Services. So with those brief words, I would like to again welcome Dr. Muthiah to our program. We enjoy having you with us. Thank you very much for joining us. I think that's a very good answer, especially for our next generation that we should all appreciate and learn from. Is the audio okay? Can we raise it up? We want to request you to speak a little louder, if you can. The second point that I would like to open with is, as I said, you've been president from 1979 till 1987. That's about 42 years ago. How would you see industry has developed then versus now? Industry as well as society. 42 years ago, four decades. That's a good period of time.
History then was just starting, was beginning. And in is uh, primarily into production and so on. But now the whole scene has changed now. It is more of IT and uh, it's more fascinating now, and it's quite different from what it was in the old days. Old days it was just mere production, and it was in the nascent stages, I would say.
How about society?
Society is completely, the whole lifestyle has changed, especially after the COVID, it's even further changed. So you sit at home and work. Uh, whole lifestyle from for 42 years is completely changed. It's no more people in the old days used to go to offices with suits and ties and all that. Now all that is gone. It's become more casual and more of intellect in the business now.
We now start the formal structure of SPICCI 360, where we would like to get started on our guest's expertise. We would like to share a picture with you. This is a picture of Dr. Muthiah along with his father, Dr. M.A. Chidambaram. Your father has been a visionary, and certainly you've been able to also follow through on that mode. He established SPIC during a period when chemicals was in its embryonic stage. What prompted you to continue it? Was it because of your faith in your father's business acumen, or did you feel that it was a great business to be in at that point of time?
I definitely had faith in my father's business acumen, no doubt. But fertilizer industry was in the beginning stages. There was mostly it was import. That was during the Green Revolution. Fertilizer was being imported, especially urea was selling like gold, and there's a big shortage of urea. So I thought this is the right business to be in, and we were a small group, and we thought this will be a good leap for us, and that's how I continue to be in that business.
Continuing on agriculture, SPIC has made a significant amount of contribution to the growth of agriculture during the Green Revolution. You've also been recently involved in establishing a center for agriculture research in Kanchipuram. What further do you feel has to be done to revive and grow our state's agriculture?
We have to increase the yield of the farmers. So we have to give them a lot of training. And that is why we have started this unit in Kanchipuram to give more basic training, not only in agriculture, but in livestock and several other fields. Agriculture is not just growing paddy and wheat. We should get into other products like flowers, uh, vegetables, and so on. So we have to give a lot of training to the farmers. That's why we set up the center. And Gandhiji once said that we should live off the soil. And that is where you will be able to employ more people and create more activity in agriculture. So this is what we are trying to do in Kanchipuram.
We are glad that several of our past presidents have joined us here at the chamber. We are also glad that several of our committee members are here with us. I would also like to recognize the presence of our past presidents and committee members who have joined us online. I would also like to share with you that the Consul General of Singapore has also joined us online, our good friend Katie. Friends, we have with us Dr. P.R. Sundaravadivelu, who's here amongst our midst. Dr. PRS has, we frequently refer to him as, Dr. PRS has been Managing Director of SPIC and has worked significantly with Dr. Muthiah, not just in SPIC, but several other businesses that Dr. Muthiah has been involved with. Dr. PRS, can I request you to please share your thoughts with us today?
mic work out.
They'll take care. Even.
Put it.
Dr. ACM and Chairman of the
He's waiting for you.
I think audio has to be.
Dr. ACM and Chairman of SPIC Arun, members of the SPIC, ladies and gentlemen. I am fortunate enough to participate in today's felicitation of Dr. ACM having completed 80 glorious years. First, I met him at 99 Armenian Street in South India Corporation office to find out whether I can join SPIC, which was being mooted and started in the year 1970-71. I came from Caltex, Vizag, to join the fertilizer industry. And he has been very kind. His captivating smile really gave confidence. I then joined SPIC. He changed SICA, which was a South India Corporation Agencies, which was a merchant company dealing with iron and steel, to industrialist list of starting new industries in the southern portion of India. He's a person keen on exploring new areas, and it resulted in development in the field of heavy chemicals, pharma, electronics, biotechnology, engineering, etc. We were to get foreign collaborations, and due to its nature, we have been very easily able to get them. His nature is let and let live. Live and let live. And that made all the collaborators to join SPIC in starting many industries. He never wanted to get all the benefits to his company and always shared it with the collaborators and the joint venture partners. Therefore, we were able to make many JVs in India and abroad, and we had no litigations with any of them all these years. He will always accept any genuine request. He's a person who never scolds anybody and uses hard words, harsh words. He is kind to everyone, whether he is a general manager or a sweeper. As Executive Vice President in charge of personnel and administration, he took care of all the employees, introduced pension system, which was unique for the private companies in those days, and used to allow loans to build houses. All SPIC employees own a house because of his good nature and gesture. He is keen on training and develop individuals, setting up training centers. When he took over administration of Venkateswara College of Engineering, many employees who could not afford to pay were given free seats for their sons. Most of them have now who are working abroad and earning good amount of money. He's apart from this, he will depute his employees to various positions outside the company, which he is to represent. For example, I was nominated to represent SPIC in Fertilizer Association of India and also in International Fertilizer Association. Let us not forget his interest in Tamil and his developing Tamilicized Sangam. His interest in spiritual field is also noteworthy. He has started training centers for the Oduars to sing in the temples. His rapport with the government is also very cordial. Overall, it's very difficult to find a person with all these qualities, and Dr. A.C. Muthiah is one. And I wish he continues with these multifarious activities and live long. May God bless him.
Thank you very much, Dr. PRS. Our next point, Dr. Muthiah, you've been in pharmaceuticals for a good period of time. You've been manufacturing penicillin G, which has been a very important pharmaceutical component within our industry. When we look at India's pharmaceutical industry today, it's gotten even more attention during the COVID times because of the vaccines that our companies are producing. But still, there is a good amount of active ingredients, or what is known as APIs, or active pharmaceutical ingredients, which are the intermediaries for the final pharmaceutical manufacture, that we are still importing. Why is it that as a country we are not getting into a position where we vertically integrate and make sure that we are self-sufficient in all respects? In fact, this is on the pharmaceutical side. We can very easily apply it across other verticals as well, where we are still continuing to import a lot, where we can try to see to it that we are manufacturing it locally as well.
We can't be without imports. And China is one country which is making huge volumes, and also the pricing pattern is very, very low. So you can't compete with them. Now, even for penicillin G, 5 or 6 units were started in India. 2 were in Madras, Tamil Nadu. One was ours and the other was JK. All these units ultimately closed down because of the huge imports coming from China. Very difficult to compete with them unless the volumes go up and then some duties are levied. It's very difficult to establish APIs in a large scale. In fact, one of the Pen-G manufacturers from Andhra, he set up a plant in China, and he was importing from his own plant. So and all these 5 plants have closed down in India. It's a very sorry state of affairs. It's very difficult to compete with China in this API field.
We would now like to share with you 2 slides where we have 6 pictures of interest. Dr. Muthiah, you have been a leader who has been looked upon by countless other people. You have also been associated with several other leaders, whether it is national or international. In this slide, we see Dr. Muthiah with 2 Indian leaders. One is Prime Minister Vajpayee, and second is with Dr. Kalam. And in our next slide, we can see Dr. Muthiah as well as Mrs. Devaki Muthiah, who's also joined us here today, with Mr. Nathan and his wife. Mr. Nathan was President of Singapore. This is the picture on the top left. The picture on the top right is Dr. Muthiah with Bill Clinton of the US. The bottom left is Mrs. and Dr. Muthiah with the King of Belgium and his wife. as well as on the bottom right, it's Dr. Muthiah along with John Howard, Prime Minister of Australia. Dr. Muthiah, what do you feel should be the characteristic of any leader in any walk of life?
A leader should carry his team and should be accessible. I found in most of these people, they were all charming in nature and they were very friendly and easily approachable, especially our former Prime Minister Vajpayee. He was a wonderful person. He was very fond of me and he took me in all his delegations abroad. Nowadays, no businessmen go with the Prime Minister or President on these delegations. So, one thing these people should avoid is these populist measures. That is what they should avoid, but that doesn't happen now. It's increasing. So there should be a leader should have confidence in himself. He should have a laid out plan and he should carry his team. That's what I wish to say.
We have a video now that we would like to show you. This is by Mr. V. Selvaraj, who's also joined us here today. Mr. V. Selvaraj is IAS retired. He used to be the Industry Secretary, Government of Tamil Nadu, and also the Chairman of the Madras Port Trust. We have known Mr. Selvaraj for a long period of time.
He's a director in SPIC.
Was also director of SPIC. Mr. Selvaraj has had a long-standing working relationship with Dr. Muthiah. Can we please have the video?
The Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry is organizing this event in order that the contributions to industrialization made by Dr. A.C. Muthiah are recognized and that an example is set for other people also who would like to get into the field. It has been a tremendous job as pioneers who got involved in the big venture of SPIC at Tuticorin. The southern parts of Tamil Nadu, which remained a backward track, became a growth center at Tuticorin, generating employment and employing the skilled persons of talent and ability.
My audio is okay? We now move on to the second section of SPIC 360, which is on organization and role. Dr. Muthiah, like your father, you donned several cloaks, such as that of an industrialist, cricket administrator, and educationist. Were any of these thrusted on you? And can I ask, which one did you relish the most?
And I enjoyed all these posts very much. So, only what are the posts you told me?
Industrialist, cricket administrator, and educationist.
Everything I enjoyed very much. Nothing was trusted.
We have another picture that we would like to show you. This is of Dr. Muthiah with the three chief ministers of Tamil Nadu, with Dr. MGR, Dr. Karunanidhi, and Dr. Jayalalitha. Dr. Muthiah, can we request you to share a line with us on each of them?
It's a very sensitive subject. MGR was a charismatic figure, and he was very generous, very kind. He was very fond of me. So anytime I could go and call on him. He was he was a very generous person. Karnanidhi I was also at one time very close to him. And he was very keenly interested in developing industry in Tamil Nadu state. And he was a very constructive person. His administration was very constructive, and he would immediately take up any of the requests regarding industry. I remember when we started SPIC, it was a very large project in Tuticorin district, and then roads had to be laid for carrying the products and so on. So what he did was he set up a council headed by the chief secretary to move all the papers so that we don't go running around to every ministry. So that was very, very good experience for us. And it also moved the project very fast. So he was very constructive and very keen on industrial development. Jayalalitha was also a charismatic figure like MGR, but she was very decisive, very intelligent, very decisive. Whenever you took up anything to her, if it was right, it was the correct project, she would immediately jump at it and move fast and close it. Like when I started the SPIC petrochemicals, it was not moving forward because of some blocks in the center. But then when I requested her, you please allow me to start this independently, not as a joint venture, she understood the difficulties and immediately gave permission and did that. She was very decisive.
You have been in the auto industry as well for a long period of time.
Which industry?
The auto industry, automotive. You started off manufacturing scooters in Bombay along with your father. You brought scooter manufacturing to India, to Lambretta. You then got involved with the Standard Motors facility, manufacturing commercial vehicles. And later you moved on to truck fleets. Do you think in the current context where India is talking about electric vehicles, India will be able to make the switch easily? And is it going to take a long period of time, or do you feel that it might be instantaneous, like how we've encountered with the mobile phone revolution?
My getting into manufacture scooters was very late. Father had already built up the Lambretta scooter plant in Bombay, and he was running it. I came in much later. As far as Standard Motor goes, I just went to help my friend because he was struggling to run the plant, and I put in some money and helped him. That is how my involvement in scooters and automobiles started. But then now, whether electric vehicles can be started instantaneously like mobile phones, I don't think it will happen so easily. It will take a little time. But if it happens, it's very good for all of us. We'll save a lot on energy costs. I think it will take time, maybe another 10 years, 15 years.
Are we okay on the audio? We have another picture that we would like to share with you. This is of the Madras School of Economics. Dr. Muthiah, you've played a key role in establishing institutes of prominence like Madras School of Economics, MSc, as well as CMI, the Chennai Mathematical Institute. Here we can see you during the Bhumi Puja function with Dr. Raja Tellaya. What inspired you to get involved with such missions? Do you think that both institutions have achieved the purpose of establishment?
Definitely, both of them have achieved the scale. And Madras School of Economics I started this because higher learning is very important in our country, not basic. Now you got to go into higher learning, both in economics, mathematics, science, and so on, like the Indian Institute of Science. And so one day when I was talking to, actually we were traveling together on a flight with Raja Chala and myself. And he often used to come to SPIC because one of his relatives was our MD before Sundar, Mr. Paul Appasamy. He was distantly related to him. So then I started talking to him, and at that time, I think he was Minister for Revenue or something, Government of India. So I told Raja that what is the point in setting up? He was also heading the Statistical Institute of India. So I told him, why not we set up something in Chennai, and I am prepared to give some donations to start this. And I said, why not we start a school of economics, just like the one in Delhi. Delhi School of Economics is very famous. So I said, why not we start this? So he jumped onto the idea. Then he went and spoke to Mr. Manmohan Singh, who was the finance minister. So Manmohan called us and said, straight away, you go ahead and start and take it, and I'll give you 3 crores. Go ahead and start it immediately. So that's how we started the Madras School of Economics, and is really doing well. It's quite flourishing. Now Dr. C. Rangarajan, who is the former governor of the Reserve Bank, is heading the institute, and they're doing extremely well. Even for Tamil Nadu government, they gave a plan and so on. And recently they have been declared as a educational institute of eminence, which is they can give degrees and so on. So that is about Madras School of Economics. And then the Chennai Mathematical Institute, Dr. Seshadri, who was teaching at Princeton, and later he became a director in Tata Institute of Research, was introduced to me. And then I said we should start, because atomic energy and so on, maths is an integral part of it. And it's high science. So I discussed with Seshadri and we started it. And the government also gave us some land in Siriseri, opposite to the Tata Center, opposite to TCS. We have a Chennai Mathematical Institute, and they've also now doing very well. They're really on tops. Seshadri passed away a few months back, but the institute is doing very well. Now it is run by the atomic energy. They are funding it.
Our next guest for today is also amongst us, Mr. K.S. Krishnamani, who has worked along with Dr. Muthiah for a very good period of time. I would like to share a couple of conversations that I had with Mr. Krishnamani after he speaks. So I'll reserve that until then. But Mr. Krishnamani, can I request you to please go ahead? Can I request you to please use the microphone?
Yeah, I'm very grateful to have been called here as Sir's PA for the last 37 years to share my experiences and how he has impacted me. You see, you were telling me that I have to leave a message for the future generation.
Keep your
As
mic.
I go on,
Mic.
there are a lot of messages here
Microphone.
for the future generation. There are a lot of messages here. So I pay my respects to Sir, first of all. Is Himalayas, a mountain, and I'm just a pebble on the wayside.
Seriya,
So you asked me to talk about the Mount Himalayas. That's impossible, sir. I'll make an attempt, and also I pay my respects to Madam Mrs. Muthiah, who is here, and all the family members who are here. This is one of the finest moments in my life. Where, I'm sorry, sir, I'm getting a little emotional. Our Mahan, if you can say that, I'll state again and again. You say Bhagavad Gita, we all read. He lives the Bhagavad Gita. May I say that? He's a karma yogi in its own right. Yeah, there cannot be any second opinion about him. Now, I made some notes because first I thought I'll talk extempo, but you know,
Can I,
His Majesty.
Mali, can you, Mali,
may I say, may I address him as His Majesty, because he comes from the king's family. So naturally, he is a king. He is a king, no doubt. So it's like, I'm a fish in a small pond. Overnight, you're thrown me into the ocean and asked me to talk about sir. It's just impossible. May I reiterate that. And may I take the permission of Dr. ACM, sir, because standing and talking, I made some notes, and it will be easier for me to sit down and talk, if I'm allowed, sir.
Yeah, hello.
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just sit down. I'll read out from the notes I made.
I think he can hold your mic for you, Krishna.
Not holding the mic properly. Thank you. So these are some notes I made. I know it is expected of me to share my experience during my association with Sir. Well, in doing this, I can only dwell upon Sir, that is Sir only, the indelible impact he has made on me and my colleagues, also on everyone within the organization and outside also. I've seen him as an all-in-one personality. Make no mistakes about it. You cannot find a parallel to him, sir. As an achiever, possessing a never give up attitude. Do your best and leave the rest to Almighty. Attitude, an unmatchable tenacity and commitment. That is where I'm here and he is there. Zeal and enthusiasm for work. I witnessed, I'm going into the tennis language, I witnessed her standing up and delivering ace after ace. Before the opponent can keep his racket, the ball goes. You will not know what's happening. Our pati and 37 வருஷம் அவரோட பழகியிருக்கேன். No matter who the opponent is in the opposite court, he just doesn't care. He loves challenges. His ability to stay cool, unfazed in the midst of odds. His ability to stay focused on the task on hand and give it his best shot in the midst of several issues requiring his immediate attention is something amazing indeed, and I've been a witness to all these years. For Sir, may I again repeat, for Sir, every dawn is a new day to venture out and perform. I think I cannot say more than this. If I continue, maybe Sicci have to order instead of high tea dinner for everybody.
When I had requested Mr. Krishnamani to share with us a few words,
I thought I'll conclude my talk with this. 2 minutes, please, if you don't mind. Can you hold this? I joined SPIC in the early 1970s as a steno, small time steno, and I gradually grew up. I came up to stenographer to vice president. Then in 1977, I think, for 6 years, Mr. Venkataraman was deputed to SPIC, and he was the vice chairman and president. He had to go to GOI on deputation, and our esteemed sir took over. It was my good luck and good day for me. It is kind of a gurukulam. See, it's not felicitation. Sir has facilitated me by accepting me in his gurukulam for 37 years. I'm still there. I should have retired and gone home at the age of 58. 14 extensions sir has been so kind enough to give me. Now, I'm coming to that. Mr. Venkataraman, I said, sir, I'm not very sure because our rumba perivere. I don't know how to work with him. I heard that he's very strict and he's the owner of the company. So I'm not very sure about myself. Please send me down to the department. I remember, it's still ringing in my ears. He said, Krishnamani, don't go down to the department. You'll be lost in the crowd. I think, sir, mistake Muthu is taking over. He will look after you. He is gold. If he is not gold, what else is gold, sir? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Krishnamani. When I had requested him to share with us a few words, perhaps about a week or 10 days ago, he deeply hesitated. He said that, sir, if you don't mind, can I send you a video? Because I'm very scared to talk in front of everybody. I never. So I said, Krishnamani, it doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable with, please go ahead with that. And very glad that you could share your thoughts with us. We now move on to the third section of our program on career path. Dr. Muthiah, you've been a mechanical engineer from College of Engineering, Gandhi, and you're currently serving as the chairman of the governing council of SPICI, Chennai. How do you see today's engineering graduates compared to during your student days? Also, CEG probably was the only institution of its kind at that point of time, and today we have several. Do you see this as an augmentation of the engineering education, or do you think there's a dilution of it?
No, ours was not the only one. Gandhi was one, and there was Alagappa College of Engineering, and there was PSG College of Engineering. Of course, Gandhi was on the top. So those days, engineering education, you also know you're also an engineer. It was principally about the right bottom, down to earth engineering studies. But today the whole scenario has changed. We've gone into artificial learning, machine learning. We've got into a different cycle completely. It's not just basic mechanical engineering. It is now, and then 3D printing, 3D manufacturing, and so on. You can build a house with 3D machines. It's happening in US. Even here, I think they're trying to do something. So the whole scenario is changing. I think we should have more and more engineering colleges. This is not, what we are having is not sufficient, but we should be, I hesitate to say this, but it became, at one point of time, engineering institutions were being given to mostly politicians. And that is not the way to grow. But now it's slowly changing because most of them are folding up because they're not able to run the institute. So I think more and more of such institutions should be started. There's the demand.
Our next guest for today is a person who's also joined us here, and we're very thankful that he could join us. It is Mr. T. Morari. Mr. Morari has been a childhood friend, if I might say, of Dr. Muthiah. And every time we speak about Dr. Muthiah's childhood friends, we always have a big smile on our face because of the fact that there's always a funny story, an escapade that they've been up to that still rings in their minds. Mr. Morari, can I request you to please share your thoughts?
Thank you. Well, Muthu and I met 63 years ago, or was it 64, in Loyola College. And to show how studious we both were, we both ended up at the rear of the hall together, Murari and Muthu, and the rest of the class was way down there, and that's how we met. And after that, we sort of hit it off, and we hung out together for that year in Loyola. And I remember having to cycle to his home once, and he was in way Adyar, and you had to cycle all the way around to get to his house. I didn't know who he was because I grew up in Bangalore and went to school there. But when I then moved to England to study, Muthu and I kept in touch. I'd always get a note from him to tell me he was coming across and maybe we could meet up somewhere. Often he was with Sicci, a wonderful guy. And so we'd meet up, hang out in London or Paris, and just enjoy ourselves. So our friendship continued over all these years, even though I was away for so many years. And when I married, the first person I introduced my wife to was Muthu and Devaki. This was back in 1980. I came back to India because of some problems on the property. And I remember at one point that someone turned up at my gate about my property and said they wanted to buy it at half the price. I didn't know what to do because he said, if you don't sell at half the price, you'll be walking down the road and someone will come and hack you to death. It sounded a very promising future for me. So the only person I could think of who was a friend who could advise me, because nobody had ever threatened to hack me to death, was Muthu. So I called him up and said, I just told him what is happening. I said, should I call the police? What should I do? He said, just take it easy. Just be calm. I'll see what I can do. The next day, this guy turned up at my gate again and called me, and I thought this is when I get hacked to death. In fact, he turned to me and he said very sadly, he said, why don't you tell me you had some influence? So I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I should have told you that. So he was very disappointed that I had this influence. But over the years, as I said, I've been close to Muthu. Muthu and I have seen each other often. And we do have a rapport because I know there is a sort of connection that last year, during our COVID crisis, Muthu, even though I hadn't spoken to him, was very aware of the problem I was in. He knew I really needed some help to survive COVID. And I hadn't spoken to him, I hadn't said anything to him, but because of our friendship, he read my mind. The next day, he sent me 3 bottles of scotch, which kept me going for the rest of the COVID. So throughout all this period, Muthu's been a very good friend, and I'd like to wish him, as a good friend, many more years, and that we keep in touch as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murari. Dr. Muthiah, we had a few online birthday wishes for you. The first one was from Mr. Prabhu. The second was from Ms. Minnie Menon. And the third was the chair of our technology committee, Mr. M.V. Subramaniam. So they wanted to communicate their best wishes to you. We would now like to share with you our next picture. This is a picture of your BCCI days. Within the first year of your becoming president, during the early 2000s, you were thrusted into the match fixing controversy that followed. And there was a banning of several prominent cricketers. A few questions come up here. Do you feel that the game is cleaned up, number one? Number two is it certainly needed a lot of guts to be able to stand up and take a stand for what exactly is correct. And more importantly, when I look at this picture myself, I see all these press reporters surrounding you, and you are just surrounded by calmness in spite of that. How are you able to manage that, which I'm sure will be of value for quite a lot of people?
This picture, I think, was taken in Calcutta. I was dodging the press. I told the press that they asked me when I'm going to announce my decision on all these players. I said I'll be doing it tomorrow, day after, again and again. So in Calcutta, they forced me, and somehow I got, they got through me, they got me through the kitchen door, and I was out and gone. I remember this picture. So it was quite a difficult task. Then I wanted to be very careful before I took this decision. I wanted to be almost certain whether what I'm doing is right or wrong. So I used Mr. Madhavan, who was head of CBI, who was a very well-known person. He assisted me, and he was a Madras officer, later on joined BCCI. He was also with me. We used all these people to gather the information and whether there is evidence in what I'm doing right. And they all gave me the confidence. And then I was under tremendous political pressure I don't want to mention here. They said you should not take this decision. But I said, I've just not heard you. I'm going down to announce, and in the SPIC office, all this press again were standing there, and I went down and announced it. So I don't think the game is completely cleaned up. For temporarily for those, after I took those actions, temporarily for maybe 5-6 months, it got cleaned up a little bit. But then I think it started once again. It's a human behavior. I can't help it.
And the most important question of how you are able to remain calm even during trying situations.
That's inshallah. God willing, it will happen.
Our next guest, who is again with us today, following on cricket, is Mr. Vivi Kumar. Mr. Vivi Kumar, as most of you would be aware, has been a leg spinner for a good part of his life and has also played for the Indian cricket team. He's had a very good relationship with both Dr. Muthiah as well as Dr. M.A. Chidambaram. Mr. Kumar, can I request you to please share your thoughts?
Dear President, Dr. ACM sir, it's a great privilege for me to be here on this wonderful occasion of your completion of 8 years of glorious, glorious service, not only to the companies, also to humanity. Sir, I would like to say a few words, both as a banker and as an international sportsman. Spinoza, the great philosopher, once remarked, great men utter few words, and those words go into history in golden letters. I would recall the time when ACM was the president, Dr. ACM was the president, and I was the executive committee member. And also we were in charge of the Spin Foundation, along with I was the chairman of the Ranji Trophy Selection Committee. We used to have meetings once in a month at his residence. And not many will know what transpired then and then which was put forth in the BCCI meeting. Ultimately had yielded results right now. Number one was, he was asking me, Vivi, why don't you think about the Ranji Trophy format? This has been playing every year, the same side, the same tournament. Why not you have a change? I said, sir, what is it that you have in mind? He said, Vivi, you have got about 21 states in those times. Can't we have three sort of teams together, 7, 7, and 7? Let us say A, B, and C. And I pondered over it for some time before I went and attended the meeting at Bangalore. And Sunny Gavaskar was the president, and Saurav Ganguly also was there. And when I suggested to Sunny, why not we have? Now you have plates, Elite 1, Elite 2, Elite 3, all these things, and also so many other intricacies in this format. So his thoughts were being probably crystallized during the late years and then put into action right now. Not many will know about it, but I would certainly say that he was more or less the perpetrator of such sort of changes in the cricketing arena of BCCI. That is number one. And number two, as a banker, also I have an observation. I joined State Bank of India in 1962, and I was in charge of most of the SPIC accounts and also its subsidiaries and also allied industries. And every month we used to have a credit meeting, and then some of his thoughts were really great. Now, RBI is following some of his observations now. One of these days he was asking me, and my boss was Mr. Ramananda Rao, who was the chief general manager, and we were talking about the non-performing assets. You know what is non-performing assets? And then he was suggesting, Ram, why don't you have a separate bank for that? Non-performing assets bank or bad accounts bank. Mind you, this suggestion was put forth in 1974-75 when he was attending the credit meeting of Yes Industries against the State Bank of India. And now we all see that why not we have a separate bank for the non-performing assets? So some of these areas in which I probably transformed myself is something fantastic, and I always cherish the memories. How it went deep into the banking industry, it's all yielding fruits now, but nobody will say anything. So Spinoza rightly said, great men utter few words, it will go into history. Sir, I am grateful for you to have given me this opportunity, and let God bless you with all prosperity and happiness and good health. Thank you very much.
We'd now like to share another picture with you. This is about Dr. Muthiah's polo days. He has been an active polo player. This is with his team. Dr. Muthiah, can you share with us your experiences on the polo front? And do you feel it is also possible to have Polo 2.0 in Chennai, reviving the game to whatever extent feasible?
This is the picture where it's taken in Calcutta. That is Maharaja Burdwan.
If you can excuse me, Dr. Muthiah. For the reference of our guest, Dr. Muthiah is standing fourth from right.
Yeah. This is when I won the Carmichael Cup, beating a very formidable team. So BP, Kishan, Prem. Prem was my coach. And I forget the name of the other person. Then here is my good friend Rasik Jaita and Vijay Singh and Garcha. Garcha keeps coming even now and meeting me. The polo is our Emperor Akbar chose his cabinet from people who had experience in polo. Polo is a very distinctive game. You have to be very quick and very very keen. Now you ask me whether second polo can come,
Reviving polo basically.
See, the problem is there's no proper ground. There are some boys who are playing very well now. Irshad, our former President Rafiq's son,
Who's also on our executive committee.
he is also on your executive. He is encouraging a lot of polo, and his son is a very good player. He goes to Jaipur and other places and plays. And so he is there, and there are a few others. But then there's no proper ground. Before we had the Lord Wellington ground in the government house, inside the government park, the deer park. Beautiful ground is still there. Then we had the army ground on the way to the airport. It's become a golf course now. Then I used to have a polo ground in my house, which has now become the Kotur Gardens. So there's no proper ground. If there is a proper polo ground, we used to play even in this island grounds. The army had set up a polo field there. So that is the defect here. Otherwise, the game can grow. So they're all on the lookout. One place where we can have is inside the race course. If polo-minded people are there, then we can have equitation. Putnanis have a nice place out in Sholingnallur. So that is the drawback now. Otherwise, it's a fantastic game.
Continuing on with polo, you have a very good eye for horses. And we have a guest today who's worked with you on that front. Dr. Karthikeyan, who's joining us online. He sent us a video. Can we please have his video?
It gives me great pleasure to say a few words about Dr. A.C. Muthiah, whom I have known from my college days in the early 70s. I used to ride in the Gymkhana races as an amateur rider from the Riding Club of Madras, and as a steward, he pulled me up once for using excessive whipping of my horse, Grey Princess, and he did not permit me to use the whip on the next race day. Strict disciplinarian he is. I remember him playing excellent polo in those days and winning a Kolanka Cup, the largest trophy in the world. I've seen him also as a great horse owner, owning horses like Grand Parade and Red Divine, winning multi-classics. After a gap of 30 or 35 years, Dr. A.C. Muthiah has come back into racing as the chairman of the Dr. M.M. Ramasamy Trust Horses. I see him very fond of his horses and cares for them. He does not put any pressure on the trainers or jockeys and accept the result as it comes. As a true sportsman, he is. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karthikeyan. We now move on to the fourth section of the SPIC 360 structure. This is about Dr. Muthiah's inputs for the next generation. We have with us our a student who's present with us today, Vilasini Meenakshi. Can I request you to go ahead?
Hi, Aya. The world and India has known you in different roles. So you've been a leader, you've been an industrialist, you've been an influencer. I've known you as a grandfather. But what are you like as a child? What were you like as a son, a brother, a friend, a husband? And how has your childhood shaped you to who you are today? Were there specific instances in your childhood that shaped you into the adult that you've become today? And what do you recommend to parents today in terms of how they should raise their children and the exposure that children need to become good adults of tomorrow?
As it, that's a very good question. Very difficult to answer, but thinking back, I think I had a lot of ambitions right from the start. And also your childhood gets shaped because of your parents. And the child always follows the parents' behavior. And in my case, my mother is not highly educated, but she had certain methods of doing things. She was very methodical. I used to observe that very deeply. My father was a disciplinarian, and he never allowed us to exceed the limits. So these are some of the points I emulated. Now, for a child or a youngster to shape up, you should have ambition, you should have confidence in yourself, and you should have discipline. I think these are three important factors which are very important to grow. Does that answer?
We have another student today. She is Ms. Sri Raksha Venkatesh. She's from SPIC and joining us online. She's doing her second year in information technology. Sri Raksha, can I request you to please go ahead?
Hello, sir. A very good morning to everyone present. So here's my question, sir. We're all living in a period where borders between various disciplines are not distinct and one needs to be updated always, sir. When things are so volatile, how can students be industry ready, sir?
Sai Raksha, sorry, I called you as Sri Raksha. You're Sai Raksha. Can I request you to please repeat your question? Okay. So are you online? Go ahead. Go ahead. Sai Raksha, can I request you to please repeat your question?
Yeah.
She says, quote, "We are living in a period where borders between various disciplines are not distinct and one needs to be updated always. When things are so volatile, how can students be industry ready?" Unquote.
It depends on the institution. I think that's what we are trying to do, to make the students be industry ready. Although what she's saying is right. The borders are volatile. And this is where the institutions such as SPIC take steps.
Various disciplines are not really
That they are able to face challenges. It's a bit.
so things
That is what. So does that answer your question?
Sai Raksha, if it answers your question, very good. Otherwise, if you have another question, you can please share it with us online. We have our next guest online. This is Mr. Murali Nair. He's based in Bombay and runs a fast-growing fintech company. Mr. Murali, can I request you to please go ahead?
Good evening, sir. It's a pleasure and honor to have this opportunity to ask you a question. So you've had multiple roles as an entrepreneur, a cricket administrator. You've headed multiple chambers of commerce in your life. You've played polo. You've bred a number of winning racehorses, and in each of these roles, you've really excelled. So, what qualities or characteristics helped you be an all-rounder of sorts in life? People like us struggle to do well in one field. You have done well in so many fields. So, what are those characteristics? What are those qualities? What advice would you give to a young person starting out on his life if he or she wanted to emulate you?
What I do normally is I shut off myself. When I'm into racing, it's only racing. I just shut it off. The other interests don't come and interfere. And if it is industry, it will be only industry. I focus on it. So that is what people should do. And it's good to be in many fields, because then you get an exposure. And then I think one should have a lot of confidence in himself and be ambitious in life. And I think that is all. And then another point is it should be accessible to everyone, and then listen to anybody who has any rung of life, whether he's a youngster or he's an older generation, but listen to their views. I think that's what I do. And you have a lot of confidence in yourself. That's how it happens.
Thank you,
We would
sir.
like to now share another picture with you. This is during Dr. Muthiah's tennis playing days. Here he is towards winning the 1956 South India Tennis Championship. Dr. Muthiah, how would you say sports is importance for children?
This was when I won the South India Junior Tennis Championship. And this was in the Egmore Stadium, I think. I got a Dunlop racket as a gift. So I think sports is very important in life because you have to be a sportsman to take on any challenges, any pressures. So even in our SPIC, we give training in sports. It's a good grounding of a student. If you, I'm sure you have seen in Oxford and Cambridge and so on, they not only give them training in education, but also an all-round training. A person becomes trained in all various subjects and also sports. The sportsman makes a lot of difference in life. So that is it. But I gave up my tennis for polo's sake. Polo is more dynamic, I mean, according to me. So I gave up tennis and took up to polo.
We now move on to the final section of the Sicci's 360 structure, which is our guest input for society. The first question here is from a student online. This is Miss Daphne Jenna. She's doing her 4th year at the Max School of Nursing. Daphne, can I request you to please go ahead? Daphne, can I request you to please go ahead? Her question is, quote, what inspired you to establish an institute for nursing and what is its future plan, unquote.
I did not institute this nursing college. It was done by my father and Dr. Sanjeevi. So Sanjeevi was a famous medical practitioner. He and my father instituted this in the VHS, and I continued with that. And there is a huge demand for nurses now, with healthcare being incentivized. There is a demand not only in India, but even abroad there is a huge demand. And our institute is one of the best institutes in Tamil Nadu, and we want to grow this further. So there is a large scope for good nurses.
While your father and your grandfather have been known for their philanthropy, going by the numbers, it appears as if you've initiated a lot of charitable causes in diverse areas. What really strikes out is the providing drinking water facilities as well as the medical facilities at remote villages in Sivagangai and Pudukkottai districts. You've also been setting up technical training institutes in these villages. How have you had the determination to sustain these efforts for over 25 years now?
I do this by running my trust. Trust gets some decent income, and with those trusts, this is all expenditure only. There's no income from these activities. I feel that in the villages, healthcare is a dire necessity. We not only give, we have 15 centers in Sivaganga catering to a large population, and it's only minor health treatment. Now we have started eye surgeries in collaboration with Kanal. They have a unit in Karikudi where they do the surgeries. So we get these people and take them to Karikudi, and then we have a free cataract surgery. That's another activity which we are doing now. And then clean water is something very important, because without clean water, you cannot be healthy. And in our villages, you see this muggy, reddish color water and all that. They drink everything cooked with that. So now we are giving this RO treated water to the various schools, and we allow the parents to take that water. So that is one other activity we are doing. So all this I thought is very important for a village, and a little bit of coaching and education also. And they're doing well. Some of those students do well. So these are some of the activities, and that's being well received in the villages. That's what I thought we should do. Whatever little we have been earning, we put it into this trust, and the trust takes care of it. Healthcare, education. Now the central government has realized healthcare and education is most important. So they're spending a lot of money, because in the old days, they used to spend 3 or 4% of the budget for education, which was paltry. So now I think this will get started.
Our next guest is online. It's Mr. N. Ram, who's the director of the Hindu group, and he joins us from Ooty. He really wanted to be with us today, but because he wasn't able to join with us here in the chamber, he's joining us online. Mr. Ram, can I request you to please go ahead?
Thank you, Arun. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to say a few words on this theme, the contribution to society. Dr. A.C. Muthiah, I never called him Muthu. I've always referred to him as ACM. I think I know very few people who have contributed to so many fields in such a productive and useful way, without boasting about it. That's, I think, an important quality here. Already you have covered much ground about these various fields in which he has excelled, has made a notable qualitative contribution. Industry, reaching deep into agriculture, education, in the fields of engineering, economics, and so on. Nursing, of course, he modestly mentioned that he just took over something and continued what was already a very worthwhile ongoing operation, started by his father and Dr. K.S. Sanjeevi. I think, and then you have health. I think this has become, actually, I must mention here that during the pandemic year, for various reasons, I've got to know him much more than I used to do before. I've known him for a very long time as a friend, a senior friend. But without giving away any secrets, I can say that I've had, among all of you, a unique opportunity. I think I estimate that I must have met him for about 200 days, or contacted him for about 200 days over the last year, which has given me quite a deep insight into the qualities of the man, my friend. He's very thoughtful. And as a journalist, I was delighted that he reads the papers more closely than I do. And very often he brings out nuggets, things that we've been discussing, which I've missed. A very attentive and serious, systematic reader of current news from various sources, including, of course, the Hindu. But I think this thoughtfulness is at the heart of what he's been able to do. We got an important insight in answer to a question when he said that when he's in one field, he cuts himself off from other distractions and so on. And that of course, is focus, but it's also an ability to maintain a certain equanimity while you do the focus, not get distracted by other concerns. There may be all kinds of concerns, anxieties, others communicate, but if you're able to insulate yourself or protect yourself in this way, I think that's an important insight when you're talking about what lessons younger people can learn. I think this is a very important thing. I particularly value his contribution to health. Of course, the tertiary sector, the Child's Trust Hospital, the Kanchipuram Child Trust Hospital, where he's chairman, and the Medical Foundation. In fact, I didn't know much about it till we had a chat. Now focusing increasingly on primary health care in rural areas to communities. I think a few thousand families have benefited from this already. And I think he's got plans to expand it as a philanthropic activity. I particularly also value his contribution to science and to research. I remember the days when C.S. Seshadri started out, it was really part of the SPIC Science Foundation, funded entirely by the SPIC group. That's how this institution of excellence, which I think is world-class already, founded by Dr. Seshadri, he really set it up, and now it's become an autonomous institution. And he already told us about the School of Economics and how he came to to start it. So at the heart of all this, I think, is a thoughtful approach to what can be done, how you can use your time productively, constructively, without boasting about all that you've done. The other quality, I think, that helps him sustain this kind of multi-level activity in several fields at the same time over decades, I think, is a quality that can only be described as equanimity. I've never known ACM to offer any kind of snap judgments and so on. He thinks about it, but when there are concerns, there are challenges, which Arun, you referred to, I think he responds in a thoughtful way, but also with considerable equanimity. Somebody who doesn't get into a flap despite challenges. There could be political challenges, challenges in business, challenges in sports, and so on. But that I think is good. And what he said about leadership early on, in answer to your question, Arun, I think is important, that a leader should carry his or her team with him or her, and always be accessible. Many leaders fall by the wayside. They've done well, but they suddenly collapse because they're cut off from all that is happening around them, because they're surrounded by sycophants. And so this quality of accessibility, I think, is supremely important, in addition to a certain modesty and a constructive attitude. So I think you can say much more about this, but it is these qualities that has given him the capability and the power to continue to contribute in various fields. And then I want to finally mention some personal qualities, which are well known to many of you, but I particularly appreciate them. And I'm a beneficiary of his goodness in this respect. I think he values friendships. I've seen it. When one friend who goes back many decades unfortunately passed away, he was related to me. I could see how ACM grieved, although he maintained equanimity and in a very practical way reached out to the family and so on, his old friend. But this is what the writer R.K. Narayan used to refer to as constant friends. Regardless of where you are, your situation, the circumstances, they remained your friends right through the years. And I think in this respect, I have not seen anyone superior to ACM in this. There is another very important contribution where I think his leader is his wife, Mrs. Devaki Muthiah, deep contribution to the Tamil language and literature. I think Valli has also taken a deep interest in this, but and once he even invited me to speak in Tamil at the Tamilisai an annual event. But I think this is a very important contribution, both the contribution to the language, literature, and Tamilisai, where they have instituted awards. The museum that has been put together, where he has taken a deep personal interest, I think is a magnificent contribution. These musical instruments that are our pride, they've been put together. So I think there are so many thoughtful ways in which my friend Dr. A.C. Muthiah, or ACM, has contributed to society without making a song and dance around it, without asking anybody to, oh, will you cover this? If he ever asks for coverage in a newspaper, it will be for the institution, for the Child's Trust Hospital, some event that there is there, because it needs to be publicized. Never have I seen him ask for his photograph to be published on the front page or anything. Those come about. So I think when somebody at the age of 80 looks back at what he or she has been able to contribute, I think that's a very important exercise. Of course, you look forward to doing more, but that's a considerable landmark, which I think was beautifully and elegantly celebrated. I was part of some of those events. I think when you look back at that, I can't see many deficits that ACM, however critical he is of his own work and contribution, will be able to find. I think you can be proud. The family can be proud. His friends can be proud of these contributions, qualitatively and also quantitatively. And nobody can ask for more than that. I don't want to get emotional about this, but I think we owe it to ourselves and to society to bring out these contributions and pay and salute them, actually. And you've had a magnificent 8 decades, and I wish you and the family every happiness.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ram. That was a very nice address. Mr. Ram spoke about Tamilisai Sangam, and that actually is our last discussion point that we had for today. The Tamilisai Sangam was founded by your grandfather in 1943, and it was taken care of by your father, and now you've been spending a lot of time nurturing it and taking care. Within the Sangam, you're taking care of music, art, as well as literature. What further do you feel has to be done in order to be able to develop Tamilisai further within our society?
Tamil itself is an ancient language, and Tamilisai is also quite rich in culture. So this has to be encouraged. Unfortunately, that is why my grandfather started the Sangam. Unfortunately, it was put down, and the other Carnatic music came in and overtook Tamilisai. But now, after we have encouraged Tamilisai and all these prominent singers are singing in Tamil, now they go and sing in the other sabhas also in Tamil. So Tamil songs are getting more and more popular. Otherwise, there is a letter written by my grandfather to Tyagaraja, saying that, to Arikudi Ramananda, saying that, why are you are from our part, our district, Ariyapudi, and you are singing Tamil songs as a Tukada songs. So why should you not sing in Tamil? So this is how it started, and then now it is becoming more and more popular. And Tamil songs are very rich in culture, very rich in tradition, and so on. So we want to encourage it. We built a beautiful museum of old instruments, and now some school students come and see those artifacts there. And this Oduars also, we give them a... See, what was happening was, Jainism was taking over Tamil Nadu, and Saivitism was going down. And that's why the Oduar community was set up, and they promoted Saivitism and also songs in glory of Shiva. And then they went to the people. Instead of the people coming to the temple, the Oduars went to the people and sang these songs. So that's why we are also encouraging Oduars. Government should also encourage Oduars to, in all these temples, they should give them permanent jobs and so on. We run a school in Chidambaram in our charity there, and I'm slowly seeing that, and my daughter Valli, your wife, is also taking a lot of interest. I think it will grow. So we are very keen to grow Tamilisai. Most of the big politicians, the old days, were all from Annamalai University, and they are all well versed in Tamil, and they speak so beautifully in Tamil. It's all because of Annamalai University's Tamil language section, where they had some very prominent teachers. So that's why we want to encourage Tamilisai.
That brings us to an end to today's discussion. If I can request our guests, both at our chamber as well as online, to kindly bear with us for a few more minutes. We would like to share a few important announcements with you. Dr. Muthiah, let me take this opportunity to thank you very, very much for joining us today and discussing with us on several matters that concern society and individual development as well. I think it has been extremely useful. Can you please join me in giving him a very good round of applause? As part of the FICCI 360 structure, we request our guests to kindly autograph their photographs and also date it with today's date. If I can please request you to do the same. Yes, that's what we,
Here, right? Hmm?
yeah.
Yeah.
With today's date. The other one as well. The other one as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item that we would like to share with you is the Secretariat has taken the effort to be able to put together a photo album concerning Dr. Muthiah's time at the chamber when he was president. He has hosted a tremendous number of programs and leaders both nationally and internationally. So the Secretariat has put together this photo album that shows some of the photographs and articles from that period of time. Can I request our past president, Mr. Veeramani, to kindly hand the book over to Dr. Muthiah?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Veeramani. When we were trying to decide on a memento that we can hand over to Dr. Muthiah, Mr. Vinod Solomon, our secretary, immediately thought that, or rather felt that Dr. Muthiah has a love for ships. He used to own a lot of ships. So he said, why don't we get a replica of a ship? And then we later decided that that's not going to be of much interest to Dr. Muthiah. What will be more of interest is to see what we can do for society. That's when we decided that on behalf of SPICC, we will contribute to both the trusts that he is running, the ACM Medical Foundation, as well as the ACM Educational Foundation. On behalf of SPICC, we are making a contribution to both these trusts so that Dr. Muthiah will be able to then pass it forward to the benefit of society. This is to ACM Medical Foundation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir.
And this is to the Educational Foundation.
No, thank you.
May I now request our Vice President, Mr. V.N. Shivashankar, to kindly come up on stage to share a good announcement with all of you.
Good evening, friends. As all of you may be aware, Dr. A.C. Muthiah has made tremendous contributions to the growth and development of the chamber over decades. And we have continued to hear about his contribution by all his friends and well-wishers, which we had an opportunity to listen shortly. It's also our privilege that he still continues to take an active interest in SPICCI's activities and provide leadership for the chamber's growth. On behalf of the Executive Committee of SPICCI, it's our pleasure to honor and recognize Dr. Muthiah's signal service to the chamber by conferring upon him the honorary title of President Emeritus. And we are happy to announce that this would be placed before the Executive Committee of SPICCI for due approvals. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Muthiah for his long-standing support to SPICCI and On behalf of all the members of SPIC, look forward to his continued guidance for the growth and development of the chamber. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. V. N. Shivashankar. Friends, I'd like to share with you that the SPIC 360 series has been able to be of good value add to our chamber. As most of you would be aware, this is today our 6th session. We've been conducting a session every month of noted speakers. And we are also very glad that we've started to attract a lot of attention among the corporates, where they look at us as an attractive platform to be able to sponsor this program here on. I'm glad to announce that starting next month, that is session 7, we're going to be, previous slide please. Let's just go back to video. Let's just be on video for some time. I'm glad to announce that starting next month, where we have session 7 scheduled, we're going to have sponsorship starting up, and we certainly look forward to this growing in the time to come. All of this would not have been possible without the efforts of the SPIC 360 committee. Can we please have the SPIC 360 committee slide? I would like to specifically thank the efforts of the committee. It is led by Mrs. Valli Arun, who is the president of the Vellingro Group and trustee of the Tamilisai Sangam. The co-chair of this committee is Professor T. Murugavel, who is head of the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at SVC Chennai. Professor Murugavel is in charge of putting together the discussion points by researching out each one of our guests and creating a very interesting storyboard for our audience. We have Mr. Vinod Solomon, as well as his very effective secretariat team, who've been doing a wonderful job in conducting not just the SPIC 360 program, but several other of our programs, especially over the last several months. We have Mr. Gopal Santanam, Senior Vice President of Emphasis, who's in charge of our marketing campaign, putting together a marketing collateral, as well as taking SPIC 360 beyond borders. We have Mr. Amalan Alavandar, who's an environment consultant of the Asian Development Bank. He's in charge of moderating the questions online and ensuring that all our guests get their comments answered. We also have Ms. Vilasini M. Arun, a student of clinical psychology who represents the student community. I'm also glad to be able to announce that the next SPIC 360 session, session 7, has been scheduled for the 9th of April. We have another very eminent guest, Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi. He has been a High Commissioner to South Africa and Sri Lanka. He's also been a former governor of West Bengal. For those of you who might be aware, he's the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi as well as Rajaji C. Rajagopalachari. Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi has specifically been spending a recent part of his time towards editing a book on Mahatma Gandhi. This is kind of a autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi that was perhaps incomplete to a certain extent, that Mr. Gopal Gandhi has been working very closely in putting together and was recently released both in Amazon as well as published beyond. This program again is going to be held on the 9th of April. It's going to be held completely online on WebEx at 10:15 in the morning, compared to our sessions that are generally held at 4 p.m. Or 4:30 p.m. as in today. So please mark your calendars, and we look forward to you joining this program as well. We certainly thank each one of you, both on-site as well as online, for joining us today, and we certainly look forward to your ongoing participation with us. Thank you. Nandri. Vanakkam.